But do you feel like, I know that you said you came into photography a little bit later, but do
Yeah.
you feel like I asked other artists, do you feel like there was something that happened that clicked in as a child or even as a younger person that made you think, let me give art a try? That's something that inspired you. Was there anything that you can remember?
Not with photography. I didn't like, yeah, photography was really a late bloomer thing because I did art, did music, so I'm also MC and had was a part of music groups and released projects on that level. But as far as like photography, it wasn't even on my mind. As far as like taking something and making it any type of money from it or excuse me, or any type of anything from it, I never even considered that. And it wasn't really until like recent where I really even started to be business mindset as far as photography. Like for at least the first 3 or 4 years of the 7 years, I was like, I'm not even trying to do much of anything as far as like a business or as far as trying to sell my services or do any type of advertising. I've always kind of been against that. Everything I've done in these years always kind of been through word of mouth and through people seeing my work. So but as time developed, as you start to think and say, hey, this is a actual business. I'm getting actual people wanting to, invest money into my work as, start taking it way more seriously. So as of today, I'm definitely professional and stuff like that. And the new stage from now is just doing the prints. And so I'm about to get ready to do print photography, which is exciting. And I'm
That
really
is
excited about that.
exciting. Wow, that's so awesome. So,
Yeah.
do you feel like now that you've kind of gotten your head around being a photographer and holding that title and kind of understanding what that space means, is there
Mhm.
any other creative aspect that now you think you might want to explore?
That's a good question. Photography, I mean, most people now are kind of doing videography just by default with social media. So I'm learning that as well, which is, they're similar, but they're two different mediums, and I definitely
Mhm.
respect anyone who does videography because they're not the same as far as like still photos and doing all that. So I'm just learning. I'm always trying to be a learner, lifelong learner, trying to pick up different things, learning what a different photographer does because everyone takes a little bit from here and there.
Right.
And just trying to just, practice. The biggest thing is practice, going out and making your mistakes, going out there and figuring out why this photo, like for example, I'm trying to learn long shutter photography and I took some and I think I left my shutter on too long and the pictures came out overexposed. You're
Mm,
learning how to, get the photo that you want, so a lot of it's through trial and error. And like I said, just trying to be a sponge with it. So
So is there something that you do daily? Do you have a daily practice? Like I try to draw in my sketchbook every day. I try to spend at least a few minutes alone in meditation or prayer every day. Do you have a daily practice that maybe that involves your creative practice or maybe not, but just something that a routine that you do every day?
Pray. Yeah, definitely prayer is one. Try to definitely start off each morning with prayer as a Muslim. Fajr, which is the morning prayer, is definitely one of the most important ones for me, just to really get the mind going. I'm an early riser, so I'm usually up in the wee hours, which is the time that I like to work. It's quiet. My wife sleeps, son sleep. I get a lot of work done. And so just find out what works. But yeah, I can sit and edit photos all day long and just like I said, just really just sit in. That's how I know I love to do it, is because you can sit in these spaces and don't get tired. Like, what I
Right.
mean, I have 90,000 photos in my portfolio and I don't really get tired of just looking at them. So it just really, I think at this stage is trying to keep it fresh and then also challenge myself. So like this year, I'm just trying to challenge myself weekly to try to go out, hey, bring my camera here or because it's a balance, one thing that I struggle with as a photographer is being able to turn off the photographer mind. When I'm in places, I see things as photography. You know what I mean? If I'm in a space where I see beautiful lighting and someone's looking great, I see it as in a photographer's eye. And so being able to kind of turn that off and be able to have balance is something I'm working on. Because sometimes you can really dive into it. So just trying to maintain that nice balance.
Right. So do you if you could give words of encouragement or sort of talk to yourself as a younger artist or even someone who was just getting into photography, what would you tell them? Like what words of encouragement or acknowledgement or how they should go about it? What would you tell them?
To a new person, I would say practice. I think practice. I'm self-taught, so I didn't go to photography school or any photography classes to learn. I just did through trial and error, and I would say definitely be a learner, be a lifelong learner. 99% of the stuff that you want to learn about anything can be found on YouTube. YouTube is your friend. It's been my friend as far as learning just different things, learning about gear, learning about lenses, learning about how to take care of my stuff. All those things are super important, and really just trying to understand like what excites you about the whatever creative you're trying to do, whether it's animation, whether it's photography or videography, just what excites you. And then trying just to kind of just stay consistent. Is a long game. I mean, it's a great photography is great. I think right now just trying to figure out like, am I ready to make the full dive? Because it can be lucrative as far as this, pay rates and things like that. But for me, it's just always trying to keep the intention. I never want to lose the intention behind photography. I treat it as a gift. It's something that I take as like a pledge. You know what I mean? I take it really seriously. I don't play around with photography.
Right.
Just because you hold a lot of power because you're controlling narratives. You're
Yeah.
controlling how someone looks. And so I never want to betray that. So
No, that kind of segues into my next question, and I asked other folks this too. Do you think art or creativity is inherently political, or does it have to be, imbued with an intention of politics? You talked a little bit about capturing, the brother with the RBG flag. So, do you think just by making art, art is political, or what's your take on that?
absolutely. Blackness is political. So
Yeah,
by default is
sure.
political. You know what I mean? Being black, that realization it didn't come to me until like a few years ago, where the blackness, because what how it came to me was when I would post some photos, I will realize that some of my photos were being shadow banned, and I realized when I use certain hashtags, such as a Black Lives Matter, that they would literally shadow ban a
Mm,
photo, and I would get like no engagement or whatever. And so I understood during even in this photography journey that blackness is political. Being who I am by default. I mean, we're the number one enemies of America since 1619. So I understand that, and that's why I take what I do so seriously, just because I understand the power that it has. And so, anytime that I'm ever even remotely in the same sentence as Gordon Parks or anybody, Jamal Shabazz or Jamel Shabazz or anybody, I take that like really serious because these people are giants. I'm just starting, and so it's a lot of weight. You holding images that can make people feel a certain way.
for
And I
sure.
realized that, I got photos that can stir up people, and I got photos that can make people cry. And to have that duality is a blessing, a gift.
Yeah, such power. Yeah, a lot of power in your hand and influence. Um, and so do you think during the pandemic or during lockdown, do you think there's something that we did in creativity or outside of it, just something that we adopted that we should continue to keep doing now that lockdown is over?
The thing I think about is the verses. When they had the versus competition during COVID, I think that was a really dope thing where people kind of was in the comfort of their homes, watching their favorite celebrity
Mm,
do their thing and kind of just relax thing, and it felt very genuine. And I'm thinking about the Erica Badu Jill Scott verses, and it felt like it was just love, and it just was positive. I like those type of things where it was like a more of a focus on community, focus on brother and sisterhood. I think COVID kind of did that because you were in the house. You know what I mean? You're able to
yeah.
kind of cultivate relationships. Like even me and my son ended up developing a really tight relationship during that time because we were home. So yeah, and the building community aspect, being able to be more intentional, to turn off the phones, to be able to kind of have that balance. Those things I do miss, and working from home for 18 months.
So do you find that there's one particular challenge that comes up in the making of your art? And can you talk a little bit about that and how you've overcome it or adjusted or
A challenge. challenge, I mean, photography is, the challenge I could think about is not knowing when relationships change. When you take photos of relationships, of people, of situations, and sometimes things change. Sometimes people you take an image and the person's cool and they do something stupid down the line, and now
Mm.
you gotta make a decision whether you want to still publish that photo.
Oh,
Had
wow.
to had to deal with that a number of times where someone did something stupid, and then it becomes a thing where do I still highlight this person? Do I remove the image? Someone that abuses women, or someone that is someone that might touch a kid, or Lord forbid, or anything. You got to
Mm.
make those decisions. Yeah, the hardest thing is being able to know when those situations change. Like if I post a photo of a couple, maybe they broke up and maybe they hate each other. You know what I mean? And so it may not be in the best interest to post that, or
Yeah.
so everything
Mm.
is always kind of a pick and choose. That's the thing about photography. You pick and choose kind of what the image looks like. I go through all the crazy photos, somebody's face looking all just, contorted, and I'm like, I could post that one, but it's not flattering. So I'm gonna post, the nice one with I love it. I love
That's
it.
so funny. No, because I just went through that with I posted a picture of my celebrating my 25 years working at Cal,
Mm.
and the beautiful coworker that took the pictures took a bunch of them, and I selected that one to post on Facebook. But there's a couple where she had my tongue out, like,
Right.
like, girl, you can't post those.
Yeah. So all those different things, I take it, and not every time most of the times I get compliments on my photos. Every now and again, you get someone that doesn't like it. And that's also a hard thing. People, the way you might take an image, I might find beauty, but sometimes people don't find the beauty in themselves. And that's
Oh,
kind of sometimes hard to convey, like, hey, I see something in you. Can I get this photo? And sometimes they don't see it because you're a stranger. And
oh,
sometimes I miss moments because of that. And sometimes when I do get the opportunity and I'm like, hey, this is the image I've taken, and then you see it's a lot. I mean, a photo, you can tell a lot by a photo. I love the nonverbal communication, the eyes. That's something that's very big as far as things I look for. The expression, the eyes, and the face, because you can tell. There's even someone smiling, ear to ear. If their eyes, you can
yeah.
tell. You can tell when someone's in sorrow. You can tell when someone's in pain. I love those little kind of intricacies about photography.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't really think about that too because I've had that. Excuse me, I had that experience. Sorry, where I have had someone be just so beautiful that you're like, "Hey, can I snap your picture so I can draw or paint a portrait
Yeah.
of you later?" And I felt myself having to explain, "Hey, I'm not a weirdo. I
Right.
I just like how you look in this moment."
Right.
But I didn't think about you being a photographer and someone saying, "Nope, don't take my picture."
Yeah, that it happens. I deal with anxiety, and so that's the wrestle. Are you going to get the agreement, or are you going to have to keep it moving? And sometimes I
Yeah.
got to keep it moving. It happened at Black Joy. There was a guy who was very out, flamboyant and very colorful and very festive. And I was like, this would be a dope photo. Like, and he was super jolly. And I'm like, okay, he's gonna give me the yes. And I was like, hey, can I get your photo? He's like, no. I was like, all right, it happens, and I've gotten more comfortable with it.
Yeah,
I don't get too many no's, so I try to pick my subjects right. But
yeah,
I definitely miss photos because I was either afraid to ask or didn't feel the energy. And a lot of times I do base a lot of my photography off energy.
yeah.
If the energy is off, if the nonverbal communication is not right, I tend to pass. If someone is in an area of life that is a little bit more challenging, I kind of have to pick and choose. You know what I mean? There's
Right.
photographers that's willing to go into the grit of society to get photos. The people that go into like like the Tenderloin or Skid Row, or capture people, sex workers. There's certain, there's a balance. And so I try to like figure out where my comfort zone is. I never want to feel exploitative of anyone.
Right.
So I'm always trying to keep my intentions in check. And um, yeah, and on my trip to Africa back in 2019, that taught me a lot about intention. And I quickly run that down. Like we went to Soweto and had my camera and I had my tour guide, and we were going to the towers that they have in what are two little I think like water towers or something. And so they were, they had like little shanty towns and stuff like that. And me as a photographer, I'm thinking, kind of like National Geographic, this is like kind of cool, these kind of
Mm,
dilapidated. And my tour guy was like, hey, you probably don't want to, gave me the that's not cool here. And he explained why. And it dawned to me like, hey, you still got to worry about not just the respect, but there's a humanity in there. You don't ever want to be exploitative of anyone. You don't want to feel like you're coming and taking. And a lot of times
yeah,
people feel like with photography, you're taking something. And so I always want to be like, no, I don't want to feel like, I don't want you to feel like that. This is exchange, and trying to explain that sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you want to convey your good intentions, and
right.
sometimes it just doesn't matter. So you just got to respect it and just kind of keep it moving. And
Well, yeah, I
that's
mean
what I love.
the sorry to cut you off. The old, what is the old wives' tale or folklore of when you take a photograph, you're stealing their soul.
Oh yeah.
You're stealing part of their soul. And
Hmm.
so I think that rings true in a lot of ways, more metaphorically for us, but I think, in some places, some cultures, it has more of a literal sense, especially when you talk about the shift in a power dynamic. Uh,
Hmm.
sometimes we forget that even though we are black, we are American, there's a certain privilege that comes with that, a certain cachet, especially when we're in other countries. And I think it's easy for us to forget that. And yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, that I can see that being super challenging, because we look at it as an aspect of sharing and maybe even, sharing knowledge. And then someone else is like, this is totally at my expense.
Yeah.
I'm not gaining anything. You're
Yeah.
not giving, you're not reciprocating in this situation. So yeah, I can, yeah, that's tough. That's hard. Even
Yeah.
in America, like you said, when you're capturing encampments or Skid Row, you have to be mindful of what your, not necessarily your intention, but your impact.
Yeah, the impact and filming or photographing unsheltered folks. Some people do it. I don't do it often. It's very rare, actually. And the times I've done it, definitely got to ask for permission. Just because it's a respect thing. It's like, this is someone's, humanity. And so, like I said, just never want to be exploitative and so that's that line. So anytime I even do any type of work with homeless populations or unsheltered folks, I'm always just not usually not doing the camera anyway, just out of respect. And that just like I said, it goes from photographer to photographer. Some people feel like you should capture that. Like there's a thing called white underbelly or something where they go,
Right.
and capture. I'm not at that comfort level, but if it's about paint someone in a beautiful light and they happen to be unsheltered, I'm down for it. But if it's just like to go and exploit someone to get some viral moment, I'm not cool with that. And so
Right.
you have to kind of draw those lines for yourself.
Right. Or if it's actual educational moment, right? Because the White Underbelly YouTube channel I've watched, and it's a tough watch. Some of those
Yeah.
interviews is a tough watch, but some of them truly are eye-opening and continues to bring humanity to the folks. And then you really do realize this is a human being, this is a person, and this is just a series of experiences for them. And
Hmm.
they have come to a place of understanding of what's going on with them. I think a lot of times, like you said, if that person has a certain level of self-awareness and their place in their journey and they're comfortable with themselves,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And then when someone, not you specifically, but when someone approaches them to either take a photograph or videotape them or interview, then they are more comfortable in their own skin
Yeah.
and can be viewed out of perspective of this is a teaching moment,
Yeah.
right?
It- It's all about intention at the end of the day. As long as your intention, but also knowing that when a person says no, just got to respect that decision. So,
And the power, like you said, the power of media is so strong.
mhm.
In just a split of a second, we are talking about influencing millions now. So,
Yeah, yeah, like the kid that came yesterday, 44 million people follow this guy. And, for me, I cannot be nothing more than inspired because these kids have figured out a new way to kind of gain attention and be able to kind of, reach different levels. I'm like, it was crazy when I was watching the stream of I Show Speed last night, and he went to the Dope Era store. He didn't even know who Mr. Fab was, and we all know Mr. Fab here in the Bay. Like,
Yeah.
hey, and he was kind of like, "Who are you?" And it just shows that
Wow.
there's different levels to this this celebrity thing, and these streamers are the new way. The Gen Z and these next kids.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy on what these kids are learning.
Yeah, because Bay Area Foods just posted about I Show Speed going to Hyphy Burger, and I'm like, man, do you know where you even are? Do you know that neighborhood where you are
Out
right
of the trenches,
You know, you are in the thick of it, son.
for real.
So, do you, speaking of that location, is there a dream studio? I know photography you could do anywhere, but
Hmm.
if you wanted to have a dream studio setup, location, and all the equipment you can think of, what would that look like?
I never thought about that because I never thought about the studio thing. Even I've worked in the studio briefly. The end game for me would be hopefully a studio in Africa.
Hmm.
I think for me, retirement in Africa is the goal. It's something I've thought long and hard about. Got a chance to visit, and yeah, I would love to have a studio in Africa to be able to kind of, do what I do and or a gallery or something like that, which I feel like that's the next elevation where I'm trying to go as far as like doing fine art, printing and things like that. But yeah, definitely be Africa somewhere, probably South Africa, West Africa, Kenya, somewhere.
Nice.
Yeah, just for a variety of reasons. Like, is Africa's cool for affordability, safety. Plethora of beautiful people is really cool.
So when you talk about a studio, so would you, I was watching 1000 on YouTube, and
Mhm.
he has a warehouse. So he has a space for where he does interviews, space where he's creative, but then also a space where other folks can come and do their thing. Are you thinking anything along those lines? When if you dream about it?
That's a good question. Not right now. And I ain't even lied. Like I'm trying to come up with this deep answer. No, I think I think in the end game though, as far as because I work with youth, as like my day job, youth development, I think I can definitely see me teaching photography at a different point, being able to kind of have conversations because I'm already having it in my day job with, I do share my work with students and like, hey, this is stuff that I did just to show them like, hey, you can do something outside of the Bay. You can go out to Paris or go to London or Africa or wherever. And so being able to have those conversations and getting kids to unlock their mind, like, wow, not only are these pictures are cool, but I can, potentially make a career out of it. I love having those conversations. So I definitely see doing some, more youth development. I have a brand called Humble Leader that is leadership focused. And so I want to be able to kind of drive that. And that might be a component of that at a future point.
That's dope. So, wrapping it up, can you think of one tool, one art supply, some photography supply, or maybe even a book to learn how to take photos? Something that you've recently found, or something that you refer back to, a camera, particular lens, just something supply that something that you want to share with folks?
Let me think. Something that one of the things I like is a little action camera called the Osmo Pocket 3. It is
Mm.
a little camera that is really cool. It's about maybe $700 or something like that. But it gives you kind of this I think it goes up to 5K or 4K, but it gives you like these great images in a video, and that is very compact. It's like size of like a toothbrush type thing, and like you can literally take it and go, kind of really indiscreetly to places and be able to kind of, get video. You could do vlogging. It tracks you. It's really cool. And so I like the Osmo. Also my 360 camera. I usually take that. Those, as far as videography, those are cool. As
Okay.
far as photography, I would say probably, my wide angle. I have a 15 to 35 wide angle lens that
Okay.
I feel like is one of my go-tos. The reason why is just it gives it distorts. The more wider it goes, it distorts. And so that becomes cool when you're trying to do like fashion photography or you're trying to get into tight spaces. It's kind of like my go-to. So I love my 15 to 35 for sure.
That's dope. Any particular brand?
I'm a Canon guy. I haven't tried the Sonys. So right now Canon, but maybe at a later time. I mean, everyone kind of has their brand. For me, when I first thought about when you think about photography, Canon was just the first one. I
Yeah.
never really thought about Sony as the or Nikon or Fuji as competitors. So it's always been Canon. So far, no major product problems, but I know that Sony's eye focusing is better. So
Hmm.
give and take.
All right. So shout out your social media as we wrap this up. Where can they
Yeah.
find you on Instagram, Facebook, or wherever else? You have a website. Shout that out.
Everything is Amir the Photographer online. AmirThePhotographer.com is my website.
Nice.
Took me 6 years to do it because I didn't even want to have my work online. And the only reason I did it is because Facebook and Meta was shadow banning. And I said, you know what? I need to control my own narrative. So
Right.
definitely get your own website if you're watching this. Make sure that you have a place that you can communicate with your audience. That's so important because they do shadow ban, they do restrict information. So having your own website, having a YouTube, shout out to YouTube because I'm definitely trying to get monetized over there and just trying to reach out to many folks and connect and go to photo walks, meet people. Don't be scared.
Nice. Thank you so much for sitting down with me. I know we're both super busy. This has been amazing, and I've been a fan of your work since day one. We both
Thank
did
you.
Black Joy that year, and so thank you so much. Uh,
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
you're welcome.
And I know we're gonna see each other soon and real person, real life, but this definitely is enough. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.